Well, it's a great honor for us to be here today to discuss the Sustainable Design Awards with two of the current recipients. I'm Peter Bardwell.
Sarah Boyer.
Mike Bongiorno.
Joe Cuspin.
And let's start with Joe and just ask a handful of questions related to, Joe, what you think made this process a success.
Well, first of all, it was the owner's commitment. You can't produce great architecture without great owners. In this case, it was a religious-based organization, Seton, that actually saw sustainability as being compatible with their religious mission, which I thought was a very interesting thing, given somewhat the lack of participation on that front by a lot of other religious organizations, I feel, and I'm very happy to see even the Reverend Al Sharpton, and who's the other gentleman that's on the commercials now. And it's very interesting to see that they view that as compatible. So again, just from that start, and what I think is interesting about all the sustainability issues are, I believe too many people view this as kind of a zero-sum game, and it's not. I think all of these things are very much win-win. When we can do things to enhance the environment, I believe it makes good business sense, and I think in the case of Dell Children's, it's already proven itself to be quite a winner in terms of employee and physician recruitment and retention. In fact, that system built another hospital that wasn't following all the green principles, and they've had some problems recruiting people to that building where they're bursting at the seams at Dell Children's. Now, I realize it's kind of apples and oranges because the other one's an adult health care and it's a little different recruitment game going on, but nonetheless, I think all these things are very much win-win. The challenge, of course, was trying to get a hospital to use the LEED program, which really isn't very compatible with healthcare. You've got a 24/7 occupancy. You have to maintain constant temperature conditions, humidity conditions, 100% fresh air because you don't want to spread infection around the building, so there's a lot of things fighting against it, but nonetheless we had kind of the perfect storm in getting a good owner support and other things in terms of an electric utility stepping to the forefront and going in for a cogen plant, which was really what made us be able to seek LEED Platinum. So again, it was an interesting project, but it required a lot of forward momentum on the part of everybody involved all the way through, which is what we had to get the challenge overcome.
And Mike, Joe is doing that at great distance. You've been closer to home. What are some of the things that you've encountered?
Well, I think the nature of the program, an urban ecology center, focused primarily on children. I think with regard to our client, it was a very sort of natural fit, and it was an easy sort of process from a design perspective because there was very early buy-in in terms of the mission of the group. And I think as we look at, as a local example, something that happens in an urban setting, obviously the impact there is fairly significant in terms of the type of site, the brownfield site, what we encounter on a brownfield site, and actually the unique condition of an ecology center right at the edge of downtown and at the edge of a river condition. So there were a lot of unique opportunities there for expression, and I think what in a building like the Audubon Center, I think a lot of what is done, I think, is more explicit because of the nature of the teaching component of it. In other words, the building becomes a tool for teaching, and primarily that type of didactic approach was really one that our client really sort of pushed us hard on to look at as many opportunities to explain visually without signage or that type of thing sustainable design, and so we've incorporated a number of elements to do that, dealing with water and sunlight and that type of thing.
You brought up the site and the fact that it's a brownfield. Maybe both of you can talk about what each of your site had before you even got there, yours being a former airport and yours being essentially a variety of functions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing on the Dell site being this was originally part of the airport in Austin, the Miller Airport, and we essentially ground up 47,000 tons of runway and use the concrete parts of it for our backfill and all the base for parking areas, which are all going to be temporary ultimately and be replaced by structures and parking garages. But the asphalt parts of it then to top the runway were actually recycled onto the temporary asphalt lots that we're going to have. We tried to use the pervious parking, but we were a little bit worried about the occasional ice they do get in Austin, and the fact that a hospital can't close for business because they can't plow the parking lot. So at any rate, those things will all be ultimately replaced, as I said a minute ago. The other thing, of course, we did was a lot of things with diverting things from landfills in terms of what we recycled on site. Again, almost an equivalent amount of tonnage was recycled with numerous dumpsters all throughout the project on the periphery of the site, where every single possible thing was recycled. Including things that people don't commonly understand, like drywall can be ground up and spread on farm fields to loosen up clay soil, which they have in Texas, much like our Ohio soil. So again, there were a lot of things done. Fly ash was added. We added 30% fly ash to our concrete structure. Luckily, we had a horizontal building, so the longer curing time of that concrete didn't slow down the process. We were able to get 40% on the mud slab parts that were in the slab-on-grade parts of the building below our supported floors, and a little less than 30% on the upper areas, for a combined total of 30%. It produces much stronger concrete, by the way. So again, there's a lot of ways we can divert things. I think healthcare is a pretty notorious building type for not only the fact that it's huge energy consumer. It's 4% of the built footprint in the country, and yet it consumes 8% of the energy. So you can see there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. But think of the things that a hospital puts downstream in terms of the kind of waste products that the average building would never do. I mean, our office building doesn't produce radioactive waste or pharmaceutical products that are waste, hypodermic needles, syringes, infectious tissue. There's so many things that come out of a hospital. So again, that's another area that we only began to scratch the surface of with recycling. But a lot of that stuff, there's vast room for improvement in healthcare. And so hopefully this sets the bar a little bit higher for everybody else downstream.
You want to talk about your brownfield site a little bit?
Well, it's kind of interesting. At that site, some of the challenges actually became the opportunities as well. We obviously the soils were impacted. There were a number of industrial uses there over time, and the site was also used as a dumping ground. So we had strata upon strata of different types of materials that were not either base stone or what do I want to say? Compacted soils. And what that meant to us is that if we have impacted soils that have been sort of contaminated over time, we, with an education center and with the type of population we have, we cannot be within proximity to those soils vertically. So there is actually going to be 5 feet of virgin fill over that site, and more so at the building location. And that allowed us actually the opportunity to have an actual perch on the site, to allow an elevated building to take advantage of views into the tree lines and future tree lines for the bird watching opportunities. And it allowed there on a very flat site there to be a presence in terms of the building form as well. Some of the challenges that and the way that we dealt with them, obviously we had unstable soils. So then we needed to drill deep down past those with auger cast piles. And so essentially the building is sitting on a series of underground sort of stakes on a very kind of thick concrete slab. And in terms of long-term remediation of the site, soils, preferably you approach that with a phytoremediation strategy. That is, you use plants, that specific type of plants that will leach out the chemicals and treat them that way. But given the long-term kind of application of that versus the short-term needs of the project, that wasn't pursued. But in terms of dealing with stormwater, imperviousness of the driving surfaces, perviousness of the sidewalks, the inclusion of constructed wetlands and rain gardens, those all sort of contributing to sort of the purification and the cleaning of the soils.